Hello, my friends of the Psychedelic Renaissance. It's Tom Hatsis, a very unshaved Tom Hatsis, your psychedelic historian, here with a very important question regarding the future of plant medicines. Should they be decriminalized or legalized? Now, for some people, the answer to this question is, who cares? Decriminalization, legalization, they're both steps in the correct direction, right?
No.
Correct, Seth Rogen. If you're a member of the conscious community or a medicine worker yourself, then the difference between legalization and decriminalization is going to have a major impact on you. Now, thankfully, Eden and I were recently at the Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, and we were able to ask some of the finest minds in the psychedelic renaissance their thoughts on this most pressing question. First up, we have Antoinette Cruz. Antoinette is a founding member of the First Nations Cannabis Network and an executive director for the Hempel Holistic Healing Society.
I would say decriminalization because it's based on more of a decolonized perspective and a sovereign point of view when referring to medicine. So in that being said, I think that the spirit of the plant would like to be decriminalized because it does not want to be legalized where people have so many rules and stipulations put on it, and it's also very corporatized, which takes away from the benefit of the medicine because we don't want our psychedelics to be mass produced by the government. That's something we're definitely not looking at all. So I would say decolonization for the sovereignty of the plant and the plant spirit.
Big time. And if you don't mind, what exactly is the problem, in your opinion, of getting corporations involved in this stuff? Because somebody could just say, okay, well, so what? They're just going to make it more available for more people. What would you say to that?
I would say that people choose by voting with their dollar and that we have the right to choose our medicines. So no victim, no crime, which is what no mens rea, I really promote that, and I really suggest that people look that up if they don't know what it means, because you cannot be criminalized for something that does not cause harm to anybody, and people are choosing to take these medicines for the benefit of their own well-being and for identity purposes. So in that way, I believe that we have the choice to choose, and by corporatizing the medicine, it's going to take away the healing benefits of it being a medicine. It will just be then a drug, I believe.
Later on that night at the SPMC after party, we were able to catch up with attorney Robert Laurie and ask his opinion on this issue. I'm curious about your thoughts on legalization of these medicines versus decriminalization. Which one do you think we should be shooting for, and why?
Okay, that's an excellent question.
Well, thank you.
So let me use the example of the legalization of cannabis in Canada. Most people, when they were thinking of legalization, were confusing that with decriminalization. And so effectively what we have with legalization is we've replaced the black market with corporate gangsterism. Why? Because we still have penalties attached with the use, the sale, the possession. In fact, under the Cannabis Act, and you can speak to John Conroy QC, probably the top cannabis lawyer in the room.
We did. We spoke to him, yeah.
Probably one of the best cannabis, the best in North America. And he would conclude that cannabis is actually more regulated and there's more laws than there was before. And so I think legalization of cannabis would have rolled out very differently had it been done with decriminalization first. And so luckily what we're seeing in the case of Colorado, Oakland,
Chicago,
and I believe that's it right at the moment, and then along with the progressive attitudes that we're seeing north of the border, effectively they're looking at this along with an opioid crisis and coming up with solutions that, well, the federal government and the states, we don't know how they're going to react, but at least they're decriminalizing, but that says nothing about a commercialized industry. And that's, of course, where licensing regulation will be needed, but I'm hoping that with regulation coupled with decriminalization, you're going to have a high supply, reasonable access, coupled with a low price. And that's the problem. Mark Hayden could take you through a lecture of his where the term, essentially black market being replaced by corporate gangsterism is because policies have been made in absence of decriminalization, and these policies generally are devoid of public health and public safety. So we saw with legalization that the aims were to make children, communities safer, and to replace the black market with something legal. But have they? No. In fact, the black market's all gearing up for cannabis 2.0, 3.0, and so on until the rules and the regulations make sense. And that's where Colorado, I think, got it right to some extent. They did not patch over their black market. They incorporated the black market to some degree and regulated it. Whereas in Canada, Justin Trudeau has tried to replace the black market with his own corporate market. And you really can't snuff out one industry and replace it with another if you can't allow the best of that industry to compete and participate. And end on one final note with respect to Canada, because perhaps your viewers south of the border are interested, but that's where communities have to look at, do we want these medicines for our best purposes and to help actually coin I heard you say it, plant medicine 3 years ago, which is, if I want to experience a Lucius, that should be on my own terms, and my relationship with the plant should be on what is reasonable and responsible. And unfortunately, laws and the regulations are all been done to prevent that.
While at the after party, we were also able to catch up with the Dank Duchess, one of the breakout speakers from the conference this year. As her name implies, the Dank Duchess is a cannabis cultivator, hash maker, and educator based in Oakland, California. Do you have an opinion on legalization versus decriminalization? Like, which one do you think we should go for, and why?
I do have an opinion of that. I believe that decriminalization is the better option, because once you introduce the idea of legalization, that is a structure that you're putting in place. So it's not saying whatever you're doing is okay, which is what decriminalization would say. Okay, as long as you're not explicitly harming somebody, what you do is your choice. Legalization says, oh, okay, well, these are the rules by which you will follow, and often that is not beneficial to the average person. That ends up being beneficial to this oligarchy, this very small group of just like a family situation that has all parts of the whole market cornered. I really, for one, I really don't want to see capitalization of these entheogens. But as whatever is coming, I believe that decriminalization allows the greatest access and freedom to the people. At the end of the day, it shouldn't have been criminalized in the first place. So decriminalize it. It doesn't need to be legalized, because once you do that, that sets a...
Please excuse us, we had some audio problems at the end there. How Duchess left it off was by saying that legalization will put a dogmatic structure in place, and that she is not down with that. After the conference, Eden and I had the pleasure of sitting down with our good friends Selena Wong and Stephen Simon. Selena and Stephen are co-founders of Flower of Life Cannabis and Flower of Life Integrative Health. Here's what they had to say. Can you give us your thoughts on if you would prefer to see legalization or decriminalization, and why? Like, what are the positives of the one that you would advocate for?
I like the model that Portugal's used around decriminalization of all drugs. I'd like to see people engage in the decriminalized nature movement that seems to be happening up and down the West Coast, and now it seems to be more of a national push in both Canada and in the States. And legalization is, as really, as Selena pointed out, restrict and regulate approach to allowing people access to these plants, and it's not right. They haven't got it right. There's aspects of it that I do appreciate around testing and understanding what the scientific benefits are, but it shouldn't prohibit anyone from having access to the plants.
And Selena, same question. Legalization or decriminalization, and why?
I think both, but I would say decriminalize first. I think there's a lot of people that need access to these medicines, and just because there's not a a system in place that makes sense yet, doesn't mean that people shouldn't have access to things that are working for them. I really appreciated what Antoinette was saying at Spirit Plant Medicine Conference, really, where it really does come down to your own personal sovereignty. You have a sovereignty over your body, you have a sovereignty over the things that you put into your body and the medicines that you choose to use, and that is our intrinsic right as a human being on planet Earth. So when we come from that perspective, restricting and regulating or trying to roll out a legalization framework that is quite frankly hurting the people that it was meant to help, there's a big problem there. So, that's my piece.
And of course, no trip to Vancouver is complete without a visit to my good friend and colleague Chris Bennett's house for a chat and a smoke. Chris Bennett is an author, activist, educator, and historian who has been fighting for more than 30 years for cannabis rights. As far as the conversation between legalization and decriminalization, are you familiar with that conversation at all, or do you have an opinion on it? If not, we don't, we can skip it.
I think like what we've seen here in Canada with legalization is this regulation and corporatization of cannabis, and a lot of the people that had created the industry are now being shut out of it because of the stringency of the legal regulations and the amount of money that it takes to kind of do it. And it's also, lost kind of an element of soul in a way, with a lot of these licensed producers. And I think as we start to take a look at psychedelic substances as they move towards a change in legislation, that, it's probably a better avenue to choose some sort of decriminalizations for those things, so we don't have patented corporate mushrooms being our only options and overregulated. My feeling is that humanity has a natural right to the plants of the earth, and that it's like our right to air and water, and that's really where these arguments really need to come from, is that humanity, as you know as well through your own books and studying history, humanity has a natural indigenous relationships with these plants. I'd say that it's even more important than what they call freedom of religion, because whole religions have grown out of the use of these plants, and it predates any sort of recorded history of religion in regards to their use by humans, we know from archaeological evidence, you know what I mean? And so this is a fundamentally human right and part of the human experience that we're talking about here, and it has less to do with taxes and things like that and more to do with natural inherent rights. So we need some sort of decriminalization that recognizes these natural inherent rights.
Based on the handful of people that we interviewed, and let me say that these are people that are within the conscious community, these are medicine workers, these are activists, these are the people that actually know, they all seem to think that legalization is going to lead to way more problems and that decriminalization is the best choice for everybody. Well, my friends, that's all I have for you this time, and like always, I'd love to thank you for stopping by. I know I haven't really addressed my own thoughts on this issue, but don't worry, those are coming in a future video. Please like this video, give it a thumbs up if you think that plant medicines should be decriminalized, and give it a thumbs down if you think that plant medicines should be legalized. Also, please like, share, subscribe. Well, like it if you think that they should be decriminalized, and don't like it if you think they should be legalized. But definitely share this video, subscribe to my channel, hit the little bell icon so that you are always notified when a new video is posted, and let's spread the truth about not only psychedelic history, but the future of psychedelic research. I'm Tom Hatsis, your psychedelic historian, reminding you that you free your mind by using your brain. Peace.